All 5 lights are on, and we go green in Berlin, and it's a good start from Degrassi.
The 2019-2020 season hasn't seen any racing since February 29, 2020. The global pandemic brought Formula E to a halt, canceling most events. But now, the wait is almost over. A historic week of racing is coming. For the 24 drivers and 12 teams, 9 days in which 6 races will be done and 3 different courses in Berlin, and we will crown one champion. Distinguished guests, Formula E Zone, and Grid Network are proud to welcome you to the kickoff of Formula E Fest. Hello everyone, Joe San Diego here. Welcome everyone to a historic week in motorsports. No other series has done anything like this. In the span of 9 days, we will have 6 races on 3 different courses. Anything could happen, and especially with everyone still eligible for the championship, there will be a champion crowned in this historic occasion. Now, of course, we're not doing this alone. I am very excited to welcome onto the program as well with me, Jack from Formula E. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Hello, what an intro. That got me really hyped up considering Shakedown's just started and, we're racing tomorrow. Boy, have I just got like the chills come through me at the moment, and I'm really pumped up for Formula E now.
Super pumped up. And of course, we always have with us from the podiumfinish.net, Kobe Lambeth. Kobe, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Feeling just as enthusiastic as Jack because, wow, that intro was so amazing. Get me so hyped for all of the racing in Berlin.
Indeed, we're super excited for Berlin. I know it's going to be, I think, a wonderful 9 days of racing. Super excited. And definitely, Jack, we're super excited to have you from Formula E Zone join us. Can you tell us a little bit about Formula E Zone, especially for some of our new viewers that haven't seen Formula E Zone yet?
So Formula E Zone is a news site, effectively. We're a news site. Please ignore my cat in the background. It's a news site that obviously we just dedicated to bring in the latest Formula E news. Obviously, there's a whole heap of us out there, independent news sources, not built up by big news corporations like Autosport and so forth, the race, who have got funds behind us. We're a very small niche independent news source, basically, but we do an online magazine. We've got our own YouTube show called the FEZ Show. We got Twitch. We just had a great Twitch stream. So we're covering all bases just to make sure that the fans, we're not just providing you with news, we're also providing you with entertainment and stuff. So we sort of grow the community, and obviously if you've got a great community, it makes things more fun. So that's Formula E Zone really in a nutshell.
A great community. I know I'm part of the Discord, and then saw the live streaming you were doing on Twitch yesterday. It was a lot of fun. So definitely, I know, very excited about it. I know coming into this, we have a really unique format going on with everything. Would you like to lead about this format and how we got here with this format that we have?
With this free race, 6 races in 9 days. So the format basically, obviously, Formula E were trying really hard, right? This was really and truly the last gas scenario. This was like the last thing they wanted to do. It was really and truly they wanted to try. They looked at street circuits, a bit like not street circuits, actual circuits like Portimao, for example, that Formula One are going to try and fit in. But drivers weren't really wanting that. They wanted the authenticity of Formula E, to stick with the DNA, which is street circuits. And with the pandemic, and there was no way we could go to a normal city center at this precise moment. But thank God for Tempelhof Airport in Berlin, which is basically just a park now, and an abandoned airfield which was used in World War II. And we had the ability to create different layouts, which we're doing. We have one new layout, the original layout, and then we're racing on the reverse layout tomorrow. So that's how it all happened. And that's how it came to this at this precise moment. It wasn't Formula E. Formula E wanted to try and go to different cities, but once they realized they couldn't do that, they just jumped on the bandwagon. Let's go to Berlin. Let's finish the season there. Create this Formula E festival as we're hyping it up. And here we go. Here we are.
Yeah, Jack. As you mentioned, for Formula E, they really couldn't race in any other city. So once they found a potential city and it officially became Berlin, might as well make a festival out of it. And all over the world right now, many people are experiencing a tough time. And with the return of Formula E, I'm sure all of the Formula E fans out there will really appreciate the return of the electric racing series in Berlin. As 6 races in 9 days is going to be really crazy, unlike anything that we've ever seen before. We're gonna have the traditional layout, then we're gonna be running in reverse, and then a brand new circuit as well. And I definitely think that it's going to leave a lot of people excited and wanting more, even when the champion is crowned.
I know that's the problem. It's like you want more, but at the same time, for us Formula E fans, and I know there's a lot of people in chat here at the moment, which is great to see. But we all know when we have one race in Formula E, you have to wait 4 or 5 weeks for the next one, right? It was only once that we've done a back-to-back, which was in season 3 between Monaco and Paris. And to have 6 races in 9 days is just unimaginable for Formula E. But as I said before in the previous show, the sad thing is that once this is done, that's it till January. We have to somehow go through the next 6 months without any Formula E action and try and keep our, thumbs twiddled and try and keep interested in some way or the other.
Yeah, it's going to be a long off season. Of course, one of the things, we only have completed 5 races so far this year for Formula E. They originally had 14 scheduled. Out of those 5 completed, we saw 5 different winners, which was, of course, seems to be traditional Formula E fashion, unpredictable. Everyone has a shot at winning. With everything going on, now we have, as you mentioned, 6 races in 9 days. This has never been done before. How is this going to be a big challenge for the teams, especially the teams are used to only once before a back-to-back race weekend. Now it's, okay, we finished a race. Let's get ready. We're going to do this all over again, not just days from now, sometimes even hours from now.
Parts are going to be the issue, and we're already talking about that. Roger Griffiths, the team principal of BMW, was talking about it today. It's going to be tough on the mechanics, and if you make an error, right? If you make an error and you bin it, you get some parts. But if you keep binning it, or if you keep making mistakes, you might run out of parts. And we might see teams scrambling for the FIA, because the FIA do have like these spare parts garages, scrambling just to get default parts to put on the car. That could be an issue. Obviously, the work for the mechanics, you got to prepare the car on, say, for tonight, after shakedown for tomorrow, then you've got to prepare it again Thursday, then you've got to do it again Friday to prepare it for Saturday and Sunday, then everything that goes Saturday and Sunday, then try and breathe Monday, Tuesday before you do it all over again. So for the mechanics and the engineers, it's going to be incredibly tough. But even for the drivers mentally, like Antonio Felix da Costa was discussing this morning as well, and he was like, mentally he's preparing himself just for a normal mid-race season race as it would be, and not thinking it's the end of the race, but knowing that the race has come at such a quick period, so thick and fast, that it's easy to lose focus, and it's easy to think about the championship, because the championship will be over in 9 days, rather than thinking of taking a race by race strategy. So therefore, if Antonio Felix da Costa, for example, tomorrow doesn't get the result, the championship leader, I should say, doesn't get the result that he wants, that could be like a massive psychological warfare that will be played in his mind, because all of a sudden he could go from leading this thing to playing catch up, and then all of a sudden you start forcing things, and that's how you lose championships.
Yeah, it's going to be really. Oh, go ahead, Kobe.
My bad, Joe. Well. I wanted to respond to Jack by saying, yeah, you're right. Especially 6 races in 9 days. If a driver messes up, in a usual world on a weekend, that they have a time to evaluate what they did wrong, and they're able to correct their mistake over a period of time, because usually you have some time in between each round. However, if you make a mistake, you have to put it in the back of your mind immediately and move on, because like if you experience some misfortunes, then it's certainly going to be a lot harder for these drivers, to continue pushing forward towards the championship, because they won't be able to keep I lost my train of thought there, but you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, of course. Like, let's think of the new drivers, the rookies, right? Like Rene Rast coming in to make basically, he has raced before in Formula E back in season 2 with Team Aguri, but comes in basically as a rookie. You got Sergio Sette Camera in the Dragon. Sorry, you've got Daniel Abt starting at a new team at Neo. So there's a lot of, they got to try and get their head through this. Alex Lynn as well, I forgot about him in the Mahindra. So there's quite a few drivers who are actually making their first race in this Formula E Fest. And for them, they've got to, like, Formula E is so different to any racing series. The sound, the way it's driven, the way you have to recover the energy, it's completely different to a normal stick in the car, Formula 3 car, anything that they've ever driven before. So to just get in and learn and try and get up to speed will be incredibly difficult. And as I said, even for the most experienced at this precise moment, if they make a mistake early, they may be playing catch up. And the thing is, the championship's so, like, it's so finely poised at the moment. It's, incredibly close. And one mistake and you could be chasing, and all of a sudden you have a completely different mental attitude going from one race to the other. So yeah, it's going to play on a lot of people's minds, this. And I don't, everyone feels nerves, and all of a sudden one mistake and you just tighten up, and that's it. You aren't going to be performing at the best.
Yeah, performing at the best is going to be really a challenge for all these drivers and everything that's going to be going on, especially the thought that there's a championship on the line. This is just going to be crazy. I can't think, this has never been done before. Besides the series being uniquely different with fan boost, attack zone, everything, and now we're going to decide a championship in such a short span of time. It's going to be really interesting. I know we've had some couple of news broke out today in regards to the Formula E. Jack, you want to report a little bit about some of the news that broke out today?
Okay, so a lot of news broke out today. So we'll start off with the main talking points. So the main talking point was out of 1,427 tests, there were 2 positive COVID-19 tests that came out today. One main notably, reportedly, I must stress this massively, reportedly, it has not been confirmed by Formula E or Mahindra Racing, is that team principal Gil has tested positive. But as I said, reportedly, I'm not going to say that's official because there is no official line on there, but it's been heavily reported. So tested positive for COVID-19. So they are in isolation following the protocols that have been set out by the FIA and Formula E. So that's happened. But as I said, Dilbert Gil is supposed to be tested today. And fingers crossed, we don't know if he's still got it in his system. He is asymptomatic, which means he's not feeling any symptoms at this precise moment. So he does feel fine. But obviously, everyone at Formula E, and I'm sure at the Grid Network, obviously wish him well. And then other news from the press conferences, Antonio Felix Costa, he's just playing it cool. He's like, I'm not, as I said earlier, just taking it one race at a time. That's what he said today. Rene Rast, he's looking for, trying to move into season 7 and obviously try and secure that Audi seat going into next season. And I suppose that was mainly everything that came out. And also with Rene Rast, Alan McNish said obviously they looked at Kelvin van der Linde as an option, but there was other like commitments that he had. So the main person who was available was Rene Rast. So maybe Kobe, just to ask you, thinking Rene Rast, he now wants that seat at Audi. Like, he's going to be tough for him, but he's obviously got a lot to show in these couple of races. How do you think, if you were a driver, how would you want to, be one of those, obviously try and show your talents, but at the same time, you've got so much to learn and you could be off the pace quite easily at the beginning.
Oh yeah, we know Rene Rast is definitely a world-class driver. You've seen how he's won those DTM championships, and especially with the future of DTM up in the air at the moment, a move to Formula E would definitely be a welcome sight for Rene Rast, because it would provide stability and working with the manufacturer that he's been familiar with for most of his career in Audi. And you're right. With 6 races in 9 days, Rene Rast, this is going to be his first time racing in Formula E, and there's definitely going to be a learning curve there, and there's certainly going to be a lot of pressure on him to make sure that everything goes right, and he's gonna have to learn quick. It's not gonna be like where you typically see a rookie come in and then given time to make those mistakes and all of that. But if Rene Rast makes several mistakes, it might put him out of the running for the Formula E seat. I think he's certainly a talented driver, and would not surprise. While I don't expect to see him win in Berlin, I certainly think that he might get off to a slow start or whatever. But I definitely think that Rene Rast is going to do a solid job in his outing for the Audi Formula E operation.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see him in the Audi. It's going to be something where this is definitely an audition out here. Now, we did get a question from one of our viewers, and I'll definitely throw this to Kobe and then to Jack. This came from Chris. Out of the 4 new drivers for this season that have either gotten their first race of their season or in a new team, who will do the best once we start the racing out here in Berlin? Kobe, I'll toss this to you first. Out of all the 4 drivers coming into Berlin, who do you think is likely looking at being the best driver out there starting?
Well. When I really think about it, I actually think that Rene Rast is gonna do the best out of all of this. Definitely, going into a new series like this is definitely going to be a challenging thing, especially when you don't have the experience. But out of all of those drivers, I think all of them are very talented. But I certainly think that Rene Rast is going to surprise a lot of people in Berlin.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go for Alex Lynn because obviously he's got experience. He was in the Jaguar before last season. He's done a season as well at Virgin. So he's got the most experience out of those new drivers sort of coming into the series. So I expect him to hit the ground running faster. It'll be interesting to see what he does in that Mahindra up against Jerome D'Ambrosio. But for me, Alex Lynn would be the one that I'm thinking will get out of the blocks quite quickly.
Yeah, it looks like Alex Lynn. Definitely, of course, the Audis. It's going to be really interesting what Daniel Abt do. I know we'll talk a little bit about him. I know so far how the races we've had, a lot of good racing. Kobe, can you tell us a little bit about some of the racing actually we've already seen so far this season for Formula E?
Oh yeah, when we look at the race winners so far in this season, who starting off, in late 2019 when we had the doubleheader at the beginning of the season in Saudi Arabia, we saw Sam Bird and Alexander Sims go to victory lane, and then in Santiago, Chile, Max Gunther won. Mexico City went to Mitch Evans, and then Marquez the last round before the season was suspended due to the global pandemic. Antonio Felix da Costa, the current points leader, won that E-Prix. And however, all of the drivers that I've mentioned who have won so far this Formula E season, shockingly, none of them have won in Berlin before. And here's my question for you guys. How does one enter, 6 races in 9 days, knowing that they've already won this season, but not before at Berlin?
I think for me, I don't know. I suppose it's like, for me as I think as a racing driver, they just take it as if they've not won in Berlin, that's not like a be all and end all, right? They're just obviously going to hope that their stuff, all the training that they've done on the simulator, all the work that they've done sort of leaves them in good stead, because Berlin, for everyone at this moment, the reverse track is actually a new track for everybody, okay? Because we're doing the reverse layout tomorrow, so it's like a new track. Then we go to the original layout, so people have more experience on that on the weekend, and then we've got a completely new layout for the final 2 races of the season. So yes, they may not have won in Berlin, but really and truly, we're facing ourselves with 2 new tracks. So I think that will be interesting. So for me personally, I don't think the drivers will worry too much. I think they'll just do their prep and they'll just get on and they'll do their job.
When it comes to these drivers, a lot of times, a lot of folks, when they think of Formula E, they think of like, okay, these are drivers that didn't exactly cut it in another league. Not anymore. These are drivers that want to be in the series. Lucas Degrassi, Sebastian Buemi. All these drivers are really talented, and I feel especially for a driver like Antonio Felix da Costa, Mitch Evans, they got great racing pedigree. They're going to come in and they're going to go for the win. At the same time, there has to be a little bit of pressure. They're in the championship hunt, and you have a veteran, especially Lucas Degrassi in 5th place. He is just waiting there, ready to pounce, especially if there's a mistake. Yeah, our 6 races is going to be really exciting to see how all the races turn out and then what happens at the end.
Yeah, I agree.
Certainly. It's definitely going to be wide open moving forward. For 6 races in 9 days, and anything can happen. And Antonio Felix da Costa might think he's sitting pretty right now at the top of the standings, but a bad race or two, could derail his championship hopes, and we could have someone like Mitch Evans or even Alexander Sims get up there, and I think Joe's going to tell us a little bit more about the current Formula E point standings.
Yeah, the current Formula E point standings coming into the race. We got Antonio Felix da Costa, the Cheetah. They got the points lead. Mitch Evans, Alexander Sims. Of course, Alexander Sims' teammate, Max Gunther, he already got a win. He's up there. And then, of course, this is where we see Lucas Degrassi, Stoffel van Dorn, Eduardo Montara, and, of course, John-Eric Verne. They're all really big veterans of the series, Oliver Rowland and Sam Bird. So they're all up there in this championship hunt. And, of course, mathematically, every driver, all 24 drivers, all 12 teams have a shot at it. Now, we do have a question, since I mentioned about that everyone does have a shot at the championship from the chat. Who do you have as the highest hopes to do good in these upcoming races? So what he's essentially asking is, out of all the drivers coming into the race weekend, who do we see as they coming in and they have the highest hope that I'm going to come in, get the championship, win some races? Who do you think is coming in with the most confidence?
Oh, it's a tough question. It's a tough question because Formula E is so unpredictable that you can't really put a name to someone like that. For me, I'm going to have to go. I said it this morning on the FEZ show as well. I went for Mitch Evans. I really think that Jaguar is getting dialed in. Obviously, Antonio Felix da Costa is in that Tech Cheetah, and that is the fastest car. But as Antonio said this morning, people could catch up in this 3-4 month period that they've been off. And who knows, maybe Jaguar has even stepped up their game. So I think Mitch Evans on the form of his life, so is Antonio Felix da Costa. And I think if out of those two at the moment, I wouldn't say I put my money on Mitch Evans, but, I think he's the one chasing. And normally when you're chasing, you perform better at the start. And if he can hold on, if he does overtake Antonio Felix da Costa, it's all about if he can hold his nerve and take it to the end.
Oh, I agree full-heartedly right there with you, Jack. Antonio Felix da Costa is definitely going to have the most pressure on him because he's leading the championship right now, and it's going to be up to him, not to make any mistakes or unfortunately get caught up in someone else's mess. And Mitch Evans and Jaguar right now, I think that they definitely have a lot to gain, and if Antonio, Jaguar, keep up with the strong form, with Mitch Evans, I certainly think that they could definitely take the fight to Antonio Felix da Costa for the Formula E championship.
Yeah, when it comes to the Formula E championship, one of the drivers I'm seeing, he has to be excited to be back, has to be Daniel Abt. I know we all familiar with what happened with him, having a sim racer race for him in the Berlin virtual E pre-race. Lost his ride with Audi. Looked like he might be out right. This opportunity comes in where he's now racing with Neo 333 Racing. He has to be super thrilled to be back in. I do see him as somebody that's wanting to go out there, prove a point to everyone that he can win there. I don't know if he could get a win, but if he could get top 10 finishes, I think that would feel like a win for him considering where he was. Now, one of the big things, of course, we are going to have at the end, once everything's all said and done, a champion crown. And it's just going to be really unique because we do have where in Formula E, 30 points is the maximum points a driver could score during the race weekend. So with the 30 points, 6 races, we have about 180 points on the line. So that's why everyone is so close. Everyone has a shot at the championship. What are the chances that a championship could be won by somebody outside the top 10 in points right now that I'm not talking about? We know we got some new racers. We got some drivers that are 11th, 12th that are just knocking on the door. Here we come to the last race weekend, and they got a shot at the championship. What are the chances of one of them stealing it?
I don't know. It's unlikely. Like, I'm looking at the names down there. Like 10th at the moment, you've got Sam Bird, for example, and they're with 29 points. There are some good drivers. It'd be unlikely, but you can't rule it out. That's the amazing thing. I remember interviewing Dilbag Gill when he told me, Alex Lynn, he can still win this championship. And that is like amazing at the same time to just think about. I don't know if the championship will be won outside the top 10, but honestly, I think the drivers inside that top 10, any of them have a chance, to be honest with you. I'd be shocked if someone already outside the top 10 manages to come. But I don't know. I think, but as I said, like you got drivers like Sam Bird, Oliver Rowland, who are down there, Stoffel Van Dorn. Okay, the Mercedes for Van Dorn has been doing a great job, so maybe he can spring a surprise. I think a champion will come from that top 10. You'd expect it to be the upper edge of that top 10, but as I said, I wouldn't rule out Oliver Rowland, Sam Bird, Stoffel Van Dorn in that fight.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you right there. I don't really see the championship coming from anybody 11th and down in points, but certainly believe it's going to come from the top 10. I would if I was betting on who's the championship going to be, like who the champion is going to be. I'd definitely say that it's going to be somebody in the top 5, but definitely would not count out Stoffel Van Dorn in 6, or all the way down to 10th and Sam Bird, like you mentioned. They can still mathematically win this championship, especially if things go wrong towards the top of the point standings.
Definitely, if things go wrong, top of the point standings, it could be a great opportunity for an underdog effort, especially somebody that is participating but is outside the top 10 in points. I think it's going to be really interesting to see who could climb up the points, especially after this first race. I think that's where everybody's going to start thinking about, okay, this is where our car is. This is where we need to improve as a team. Let's see how everything goes. But of course, it's not going to be the same course. We'll get a little bit into that when it comes to the different courses. Now, one of the big things about this course in Berlin, Antonio Felix da Costa comes in with the points lead. All the active drivers, he is 10th when it comes to best average finish. Last year, he scored a 4th place finish. That was his best. Prior to last year, he finished 11th twice outside the top 10. Does Antonio Felix da Costa come in with an offensive mindset to go out there, get the pole, win, and dominate? Or should he just try to come in with the hopes of finishing the top 10, being consistent throughout the 6 races ahead?
I think for him, he said earlier in the day that he's just going to take it step by step. And I think that's the best way to take it, because if he wants to take it as a normal weekend, then he just wants to be consistent. He knows he has the car that can fight at the top. He knows he does. So he just wants to do that. He just literally wants to have a race where he expects to, have a good result. That will affect qualifying, because remember, he'll be in Group 1, and he'll have Jean-Eric Verne, who's a bit further down the table, will be in Group 2. So that could cause a bit of play. So, people have got into Super Pole before in Group 1, but qualifying will be huge for Da Costa. So he's got to, and that will decide whether or not, if he has a good qualifying for the first race, he'll just chill. He'll be okay, got a good position. All I need to do is finish in top 10, score some points, make sure I'm close to Mitch Evans. Job done for race 1. Okay. And then, but if he has an atrocious qualifying starting like P16, P15, then all of a sudden he's think, okay, I've got to go on the offensive because Mitch is in 9th, for example, and he's closer to the front than I am. So he's then got to attack. And that's, the psychological warfare, as I said earlier, of this championship is just amazing, because one simple thing like a poor qualifying performance, which we see so many times in Formula E, could just throw this championship wide open.
Yeah, definitely, Jack. I think with Antonio Felix da Costa at this point of the season, you just have to keep doing what works best for you and your team, and like you don't want to try anything new, like have like a new mindset or whatever. It just needs to be business as usual. Antonio Felix da Costa and his team, I believe they really just need to go out there, execute the plan, and everything is going to be all right for them, and they may come out as Formula E champions. And Jack, for our new viewers, for like any new Formula E viewers, can you explain how the qualifying format works?
Yes, of course. So the qualifying format is split into 4 groups, and they run in championship order. So the championship runners, so if you're at the top of the championship, so if you're 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, you go out in Group 1. So you theoretically get the worst qualifying grid track grip effectively. So therefore, when I'm saying Antonio Felix da Costa can be 16th, that's because he theoretically gets the worst of the track, worst grip, So therefore, the track's green, everyone else runs later, the track gets faster. People in Group 4, who will be the bottom end of the championship, so like 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, for example, they will be in the bottom like half in that group, and they should have the best track to try and then make them have a good qualifying. So then you get a mixed up grid. But the top 6 go into Super Pole. And Super Pole is like a 1-lap shootout. So whoever makes the top 6 from the first 4 groups. So that's why it's important just to get into that top 5, top 6 in qualifying for Group 1, because then you get another chance where the track's all nice and rubbered up for you to then go for 1-lap shootout to see who can get pole position. So, drivers, you're here over the weekend in qualifying, especially talking about that Super Pole, trying to get into Super Pole from that qualifying session, from that group format, and then from there on, and then obviously if you don't make Super Pole, then where you are in that group qualifying will determine your starting position.
And one interesting thing with the pole, 3 points for the pole sitter. That is something where that definitely is advantage, especially coming into the points. It's so close between everyone. Those 3 points could be make or break. 1 point for the fastest lap as well, 1 point for the fastest driver, and then, of course, 25 for the win. And one of the drivers a lot of people are going to be looking at as a potential winner has to be Lucas Degrassi. He has won there. The Audi team has always been performing pretty well. We know in the past there's sometimes been a little bit of bad luck. He had a pretty poor season last year, but now got to win. He's right there in 5th place. Is he the real threat for the championship that everyone's sort of overlooking? Because I know we've been talking about Mitch Evans and Tony Felix Acosta, Sims. Not a whole lot of talk about Lucas Degrassi, but are we overlooking him? Is he really the championship threat?
I think we're not talking about him because he's done an exceptional job in Audi, which, I've said on the FEZ show, is one of the worst Audi cars that they've ever made, and he's outperforming that. And you can have seen that where Daniel App was like 16th in the championship, and he's racing in the same car. That Audi is not great. And it was interesting. I was trying to ask Alan McNish today if they didn't answer my question from the virtual media center, so I kind of cried. Nah, it was okay. But I was sort of, what have you done to try and improve this car so it's more competitive? Because really and truly, what Lucas Degrassi has done with that car has been absolutely brilliant, because it's really a car that should be fighting for a top 10 finish, but he's managed to get some really good point scoring positions out of it. And you have to remember, when he's been qualifying quite low down, and he's been doing these fantastic recovery drives, which has got him up to where he is and 5th in the standings. So honestly, I don't think we're overlooking him, because I don't think out of that top 10, if there was one driver I'd say in that top 10 that probably wouldn't be champion, I'd say Lucas Degrassi.
Yeah, you definitely bring up some great points there, Jack. While Lucas Degrassi, world class driver in the Audi operations, has seen success in Formula E. I don't really think that Lucas Degrassi is going to be champion this year. However, I definitely think that they can, salvage some good points, have some great finishes, and head into the offseason on a high note.
Entering the offseason on a high note will be a big win for them, especially it's not the greatest car that they have. Degrassi is really showing his skills. The championship, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a win or two. That consistency, especially throughout the 6 races in such a short time, I just don't see that happening either. So definitely it's going to be really interesting to see all that happens. Now, of course, when we talk about Degrassi, he's, of course, with Audi. He's been with Audi for a long time. The biggest change that came out during the halt was the silly season news, which we saw Pascal Wehrlein. He left Mahindra. We saw, of course, we didn't know what happened with Daniel App being sort of let go by his duties with Audi. But the biggest one has to be Sam Bird. Sam Bird, who had been racing with Virgin Racing all his career in Formula E, he's going to be with Jaguar next year. I know when it came to the silly season, we had a lot of big changes. Overall, what were your thoughts of some of the silly season changes that we were seeing during this hiatus, Jack? And was Sam Bird's the biggest one to occur, or do you see others down the line as we finish the season afterwards?
Sam Bird's was by far the biggest that we've seen, by far, because he has left his team. As I said in a previous show, I said, it's like Max Verstappen leaving Red Bull. Okay, it's his team. Like Lewis Hamilton leaving Mercedes, it's his team. Virgin was his team. Even Robin Freins made the joke the other day that he's the number 2 driver in the Virgin Racing squad. And Sam has moved from Virgin into Mitch Evans' team, basically, because Jaguar is a Mitch Evans team. They've basically based that car around him. And for Sam, it seems like, yes, that team is on the up. Yes, it's a great British brand and a British driver to go and represent it. But it's not his team. And Mitch Evans is going to be tough. And he's going to be a tough driver to beat. And, Sam Bird has had some very tough teammates over his time. He's had John Eric Verne. He's had Alex Lynn. Jose Maria Lopez. So he's had some really tough drivers to compete against. And Mitch Evans, you may argue, Nelson Piquet Jr., obviously season 1 champion, was a good teammate. But obviously Adam Carroll didn't really match him too much. James Collado hasn't really done much to him. So you can see why it's become a Mitch Evans team. So for Sam Bird, that is a do or die. That's either beat Mitch and prove that you're one of the best and you deserve a championship, or, see your Formula E career falter out. Obviously, there's been a lot of other silly season moves. We've got Sergio Sette Camara coming in at Dragon in place of Brendan Hartley. That was a shock. No one was expecting that. But I think with his World Endurance Championship commitments, and obviously Collado is potentially missing a race, the last 2 races for Jaguar, for the final 2 rounds. So that could be a reason why Brendan Hartley, because contracts were up, he was probably going to have to drive that race anyway for the Toyota, I believe. So I think that was sort of why that sort of got cut. So that was a surprise. We weren't expecting it, but it sort of makes sense now you see it. Verline's the most shocking one in terms of why did he leave Mahindra at that point? Because he's not racing in these 6 races that we have. He's not racing, whereas he would have been racing if he stayed at Mahindra and then signed for Porsche, which we all expect him to do in season 7. So why did he leave Mahindra at the point? We probably will never know that answer until we ask him later down the line and when he's ready to give the answer, because I reckon if I asked him tomorrow, he wouldn't tell me. So I might have to wait a little bit to see why that move happened. But yeah, that's a shocking move in the sense of, okay, moving the Porsche is fine, but why did you leave Mahindra and miss the end of the season? That's the question mark that I think a lot of people want answering.
Yeah, certainly a lot of crazy, silly season moves to Formula E heading into next season. It was Sam Bird moving to Jaguar, as you mentioned. Being alongside Mitch Evans. That's definitely going to be a tough fight, and better than anyone, Jack. And in this form of motor racing, drivers are directly compared to your teammate, and it definitely won't be easy going up against a driver of Mitch Evans' caliber. Sam Bird is a world class driver as well, so definitely Jaguars is definitely going to be a team to watch for the foreseeable future. And then the reports of Pascal Verlaine, leaving Mahindra for Porsche. When I heard that news myself, that really shocked me. Because I was wondering, like you and everyone else, like why couldn't he finish out the season, like why with Mahindra, and why, and like I don't know if that was like had something to do with his contract or whatever, but it was certainly sent shockwaves through the Formula E paddock. Daniel Abt going to Neo, remember with the sim racing drama that happened, that was just unfortunate that Abt lost his seat with Audi. And then picked up the seat, an open seat at Neo. It's gonna be interesting to see, what the future holds for Daniel Abt's Formula E career moving forward. And Jack, I have a question for you before I move on to talking about the layouts. Do you think we're gonna see like any more shocking changes heading into next season?
You never know. Honestly, Kobe, you never know. Not from anything I know at this precise moment, we may see some changes. It's whether Sergio Sette Camara stays at Dragon. I would expect Daniel Abt. It depends. The Daniel Abt Tamar situation is interesting. And Turvey, what does Turvey want to do? Does he want to root out of that team? That could be your interesting one of what could happen. So there still could be movement. For me, I think Turvey would be the interesting one.
Definitely it's going to be the interesting one to see with the Mahindra team one of the big things, of course, it's going to be a really interesting, silly season, especially we got some of these big moves already occur. Sam Bird, Daniel Abb. One of the questions, though, and then I know we'll get into the different course layouts we have. We're seeing in F1 how Vettel's is just having a horrible season. It seems like once he knew he was out of that team, nothing occurred. Do you think there's any remote chance that could happen to Sam Bird, where he just goes out there and just non-championship contention? Or do you think because he knows this is his last shot, he's going to try to go all out and try to snatch that championship?
I think he's a professional, so I reckon he'll go all out anyway. I don't think it'll be his last gasp for a championship, because I think that's why he's moving to Jaguar to try and to sign. To obviously sign to go for a championship. So he'll be professional, and I honestly think he'll give it his best shot, because that's Sam Bird. So I wouldn't expect anything less.
Oh, my screen froze for a second. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah. Oh my God. Wait, hold on.
No worries.
My
So one of the big things I know we're really excited about is seeing what's going to happen with Sam Bird's and this upcoming racing 6 races. It's going to be, I think, really interesting to see how it all works out for him. I hope he does have a good effort. That seems to be a really good combination. I would hate to see it just end at a downturn like what we're seeing with Vittles right now. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Virgin and Sam Bird.
And Joe, can you repeat the question? My screen, it froze up for a second. I apologize for that.
Not a problem. How do you see Sam Bird's season going to work out, especially once we saw what happened with Vettel and his season just falling apart? Do you see Sam Bird season coming to the same conclusion, or do you think he's going to rise up?
I definitely think he's gonna rise up, and everything's gonna go well for Sam Bird. You know, Jaguar, you know, obviously saw a lot in Sam Bird. You know, and they decided to pair him up with Mitch Evans. I don't think that Sam Bird, you know, is gonna have like a Sebastian Vettel like fall when he gets to Jaguar. I think it certainly could be a powerful partnership and a potent duo of Sam Bird and Mitch Evans going after the Formula E championship.
Definitely, I think it's going to be very powerful. Now, I know we've been talking a little bit about 3 different courses. It's going to be all in Berlin for the fans not familiar with the Berlin course. Kobe, what can you tell us about the courses coming up this upcoming race week?
Oh yes, it's gonna be really crazy. Gonna have 3 different layouts. First, we're gonna run a traditional course, as you can see right there on the screen, and for the 2 races, and then the next 2 races, it's gonna be the same course, but in the opposite direction. It's gonna be really crazy. I remember when they were talking about Formula 1 coming back. They were talking about running Silverstone in reverse, which would have been really crazy. And we're seeing that in Formula E. I'm sure it's definitely going to be a sight to see for all the fans. And then the third course for the final 2 races at Berlin is going to be a brand new layout, and that's definitely going to be a challenge for all the drivers who have obviously never driven on that. And you know, in the past 5 races, we've had 5 different winners in Berlin with Jerome D'Ambrosio, Felix Rosenqvist, who's now racing for Chip Ganassi Racing in the NTT IndyCar Series, Sebastian Buemi, Daniel App, and Lucas Degrassi, and the lowest starting spot, you know, to take the win was 6th place, and all of the races except the first few have had a low, you know, 1 lead change or less, but 2014 had 2 lead changes. You know, passing seems to be very difficult in Berlin, and you know, during these final 6 races of the season, do you think passing will be a major problem for these drivers?
So speaking to Sebastian Buemi today in the press conference, he wasn't a big fan of the reverse layout. He says, you know, racing might be a bit more difficult there. It's going to be interesting. We were hypothesizing this morning that the last corner, so turn 1 for the reverse layout, and the hairpin might be the main overtaking point. We were a bit unsure going into turn 6, which is after the hairpin, and you go sort of left, right through that sort of like quick chicane, and then you've got the hairpin. And then really for the rest of the lap after that, there isn't really an overtaking move. But I think the moves are going to be tactical, especially for that last section, that sort of Shanghai section, because especially in the reverse now, they're going to have to go left and then they're going to have to go right the way round and then just boom it straight out and hopefully try and, get it into turn one. So I think we'll see a lot of moves tried to be set up through that section. So we might not see the, overtaking that maybe we're used to in Formula E. But I still think even though we're running the reverse layout first, we might still see some overtaking moves.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see, especially the reverse layout, how the overtaking works out. The new course, the third one, where they're going to change up the course design, that's going to be really interesting. I know here in the United States, we've been hearing about how one American stock car racing series, they're racing a road course in Daytona with no practice, but they have simulators. Here, Formula E, they don't have simulators for this new third course design that has a new corner. So it's going to be really interesting to see the drivers just hop in and then just try to learn these new courses. Of course, they have the track walk around where they walk around, see the track, try to get some marks so they know good braking points. But it's going to be really interesting to see how all the drivers handle the new course.
Yeah, certainly. It's definitely going to be interesting, with the drivers starting off on a traditional course, then going backwards, and then a brand new course as well. I think passing might definitely be an issue. So qualifying will certainly be important. Need to make sure you're starting near the front. Well, as I mentioned, the lowest starting spot to win the Berlin E-Prix has been from 6th place, and based on the stats that we already have, it shows us that you probably need to start 6th or higher if you want to win in Berlin.
Definitely 6 or higher is a good starting spot for the Berlin E-Prix. Now, one of the big things, of course, passing, as you mentioned, that's going to be a real big challenge. One of the questions I know coming out with Berlin and these 3 different courses, I know earlier when they announced we're going to do the 3 different courses, Jack, Formula E Zone, you all had a fun contest of how would you design the track. Going forward, do you think this might be something, especially if this turns into a successful event where they might do a double header where it's the traditional court and then every year a new circuit or something like that? Because Formula E always seems to try new things. This seems like something really new and interesting.
To be honest with you, Joe, that was what Formula E were hoping to do with Berlin, that they could make a new track layout at the Tempelhof Airport every year. I wasn't a big fan of that. Because, because then Berlin has been on the calendar for every season, right? And we talk about historic races, right? Monza, Monaco, Spa. The track hasn't changed much, right? Maybe some alterations here and there, but overall it hasn't really changed much. It still has the famous sections in them. Whereas if we start, for Formula E, I'm thinking, it's just me and my brain thinking further down the line. When we get 10 years, when we're in our wheelchairs and we're looking back at Formula E and Berlin's still on the calendar 70 years later, 50 years later, 30 years later, how many other years later, and it's been a different layout, it won't have that authenticity like, that's Berlin. And I feel like even though we're on this layout that we're in at this precise moment, you could, it's still nice to have a section of track. Yes, you can change it, but at least, have elements of the track so it sort of stays, there's sort of, your hint to the past and stuff like that. Because if you keep changing it, for me, I feel like, it kind of loses its appeal, in my opinion.
Yeah, you certainly bring up some good points there about authenticity. Yeah. Oh man, got tongue tied there. But yeah, we definitely, if you change the course, too much, it's definitely going to lose some appeal there. And I feel like, they're making the best of the current situation with the global pandemic. Racing in one city, 3 different courses. Yeah, and definitely, I think it's a good idea, to experiment and all of that. As Joe mentioned, Formula E has been good with trying new things and all of that. But I definitely agree with you and think that. And I thought that it was funny you mentioned when we're all old and in our wheelchairs looking back on Formula E. I definitely think that winning in Berlin would be more meaningful. If it's like the same circuit. Instead of coming up with a whole bunch of different ones.
Yeah, I'll have to make it unanimous. For me, the idea of a different circuit is really fun. exciting because there's always the possibilities, surprise races, really entertaining races. One of the big things you do bring up, a track does build character. I know for Berlin, that first corner in the traditional layout has always stood out to me. That's why I think if Formula E was to go a route where it's like, okay, we want a different circuit, but we don't want to lose what everyone has known as the Berlin E pre-circuit with that, especially that first corner, that sort of loop. Maybe a double header weekend where it is, you got the traditional race, and then you have the other race, which is going to be on a different circuit. Of course, looking at the map again, is not too much of a difference. It's mainly the backstretch area and the far corners where you're going to see some of the big changes. But definitely still, it's going to be really exciting for all the drivers to try to maneuver and try to win a championship in this layout, because we're going to have all the races, 6 races total. It's going to be really exciting. And for all our fans out there, I know we've been seeing a lot of great chat about who they think is going to win the race or who's going to win the championship. Definitely encourage everyone to visit gridranking.com and download the Formula E Pick a Winner forum. Definitely, you just click on the forum and it's going to be pop up a nice little sheet where you have all the drivers' names, and we're challenging everyone to participate in this fun little game where you can select who you think is going to win each race. So that's 6 race winners, 6 second place finishers, 3rd place finishers, and then of course at the very bottom we have the question, who do you think is going to win the championship? That's going to be really entertaining to see, because I know already we have people putting it in the chat like who they think was going to win the championship. People are having a great time chatting with each other and even placing little bets too. So we encourage everyone, participate in the chat. We love seeing it. Just make sure you have fun. Don't bet too much money, because we don't want anything like that to happen. But definitely when it comes time for pick a winner, I know we did race 1 our previous show. For fans that haven't saw, when it comes to race 1, who do you all see as going to win the race?
I can't remember who I picked. I think I went Mitch Evans. So I'm going to stick with Mitch Evans. I think I went for Mitch Evans for Wednesday, and I went Oliver Rowland is my dark horse one for Thursday.
Yeah, looking at my picks for race 1 and race 2, I'm going with Antonio Felix Acosta to win the first race, and second race I'm going with Mitch Evans in the Jaguar.
That will keep it interesting.
Very interesting. I know definitely I was looking at Antonio Felix Acosta. One of the things I'm going to, especially for the second race, I think I'm going to start looking at, it's definitely got to be Max. I think he's shown a lot of potential being his rookie year. For that second race, I think he got a good shot. Jack, when it comes to the second race, what do you see as a favorite?
Me, I picked Oliver Rowland. I just think him as a dark horse. I literally, that Nissan's okay, and Rowland, he's been getting better and better and better. And, he was great last season. And, I think he could upset the apple cart.
Definitely try to pull up the opposite. One of the big things, of course, we've seen people in the chat room talking about the championship. One person said Antonio Felix Acosta. Definitely for everyone in the chat, who do you think is going to win the championship? We want to know, because I know it's just so weird. This is the last race week of the year. 6 races. To try to say who's going to win the championship almost seems impossible right now. I mean, it could be somebody that Daniel Abt could, in theory, if he was to do really good, win the championship, or a driver that's just brand new who hasn't started a race. It's going to be really exciting. Super thrilled about it. When it comes to the championship battle, do you see anybody as a clear favorite coming in, or somebody that's going to be the opposite end? They have the most to lose.
I don't think anyone has the most to lose. I think favorite coming in probably is the Costa, because he's in that Tech G2. But you can't rule out John-Eric Verne. He didn't even win in any of the first, till round 6 last year in Sanya. And then all of a sudden, that's where his championship challenge came, and he managed to defend his crown. So anything can happen. Honest to God, at this stage, I could say Mitch Evans will win the championship. He could not finish the next 2 races, and that's his championship done for. That's how, there's still so many points to play for. So it's incredibly hard to pick a champion at this precise moment. I don't think, and as I said, anyone has anything to lose, because there's still such a long way to go. But if you're going to pick for a favor, I think you've got 3 drivers, and that's Verne, Evans, and Da Costa.
Yeah, certainly. When looking at the championship, I certainly think that it's going to be a battle, between Antonio Felix da Costa and Mitch Evans. I definitely think that Mitch Evans is definitely going to give him a run for his money. However, if something goes wrong, I also would not count out Alexander Sims or even Max Gunther. I definitely think that if something goes wrong for the top drivers in the championship, those who are next in line could potentially strike and maybe put themselves in conversation for the championship.
Definitely, I think they're going to be putting themselves in contention for the championship. It's going to be really super exciting to see how everything works out. I do think one of the favorites has to be Antonio Felix da Costa, just because he is in that number one spot. He has a pretty good car. John Eric Byrne, you said it. He didn't win till the sixth race last year. Last season, we had, of course, 8 different race winners. We could see still something like that in case we have different race winners. It's just going to be really exciting. This is by far, I know, if this was just something where they have fans able to attend, we were in a pandemic, this is something where it's like, I'm booking my ticket. I'm going to get a caravan, RV, as we call in the United States, camp all week there, have a good time, Formula E all week long. This is just so exciting. And definitely, we're thankful for all our fans for tuning in with us, chatting. I know as we close out, any final thoughts before we hit off the air? We'll start with you, Kobe.
Yeah. As you mentioned right there, Joe, during normal times, it would be really crazy, with this Formula E Fest. In a way, it kind of reminds me of NASCAR Speed Weeks at Daytona, leading up to the Daytona 500, where you have all of these races, going on. Where you start off with the ARCA race, then you have the Busch Clash, and then you have Daytona 500 qualifying, and after that, you have the duels on Thursday night. Then you have the truck race on Friday night, Xfinity race on Saturday afternoon, and then on Sunday afternoon, the Daytona 500. So in a way, Formula E Fest, feels like Daytona Speed Weeks. And although next year is going to become Daytona Speed Week because everything's been shifted into a 1 week schedule on the NASCAR side of things. But definitely, if we were living under normal times and had this type of Formula E Fest, I definitely think it would be a great week for Formula E fans to hang out in Berlin and enjoy all the racing.
I agree. If media were there, I'd be there. I'd be in my hotel, eating all the food, enjoying the time with everyone there and all the fans if there were fans, especially if it was a normal week. It'd be an absolutely amazing sort of festival. And that's why we called it the Formula E Festival, because it is a festival. We're just making it a virtual festival. So remember to use the hashtag Formula Fest whenever you're sharing news and stuff like that about Formula E, just so everyone can be part of that Formula E Festival, and we can bring the community together. And with Formula E, community is so key. So, and that's what we want. So yeah, that's my last words.
Definitely. I'm so excited. This has been something I've been looking forward to ever since they announced this. I've been just excited about it. I got that introduction, got me goosebumps too. At the same time, I just been so thrilled. It's like ready for it. Even though I'm in the West Coast, an unusual sleep schedule of waking up early for the races, watching races. We got more programming. But this is the kind of stuff that just makes it a lot of fun. It just reminds me of week-long festivals where your sleep schedule might be a bit off. You might be just eating tailgate food all week long, but you're having so much fun, and the community there, get everyone that loves Formula E together, especially use the hashtag Formula E Fest. We'd love to get people involved with the chat and all the fun. And I definitely want to give a shout out to Formula E Zone and the Discord channel. Great Formula E community there. Really enjoyed being part of that. Just a job well done, Jack.
Thank you.
We thank everyone for watching our program today. Of course, tomorrow we'll be doing Grid Tonight. It'll be a special post-race after the first race, and then, of course, our normal Grid Tonight racing news program. So we encourage everyone to follow that, and then we're going to be doing more special programming throughout the week, including Saturday with Grid Live pre-race, and then Sunday as well. For Jack from Formula E Zone, Kobe at thepodiumfinish.net, I'm Joe Sandiego from the Grid Network. Thank you for watching. We hope you all are excited for the upcoming races. Enjoy the races, and we'll see you all next time.